tonight.
Minagisigaw.
An Indigenous scholar says he was rejected by the University of Saskatchewan over a lack of documentation proving his ancestry. Also, how rising grocery costs are impacting local food banks. Plus, students create and share work based on deaf and hard of hearing experiences in a new Regina Public Library art exhibit.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Thursday, June 9th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. A professor of Cree and Métis ancestry won't be moving to the University of Saskatchewan after all. He says it's because he didn't meet the school's requirements to prove he's Indigenous. Jason Warwick has the story.
Minagisigaw. Siguan is here. The Muscamee is gone.
University of Manitoba professor Riel Carrier is headed out for a paddle, just as he did growing up on his family's trap line in northern Saskatchewan.
Red River's a little high. Heading downstream.
Carrier recently applied for a job at the University of Saskatchewan. He was unanimously approved by a committee of mostly Indigenous scholars. But then U of S administration demanded he produce paperwork such as federal government Indian status cards to prove that he's Indigenous. Carrier refused, saying these are colonial documents. Now he's out of the running for the position and will remain at the University of Manitoba.
It would have been great to be back in Saskatoon. Then not being able to come back as well was disappointing for a lot of different reasons.
A U of S Indigenous Studies professor says Carrier is clearly Indigenous, and U of S administrators were wrong to make those demands.
Well, I feel really bad for Riel. It was a very uncomfortable and disrespectful process that he had to go through.
Last year, U of S professor Carrie Barassa was accused of fabricating her claims of Indigenous ancestry. Waldron says the U of S has overreacted to the Barassa controversy, and people like Carrier are paying the price. The U of S has established a task force to look at the issue of Indigenous identity, and they expect a new policy to be in place by the fall. No one was available for an interview today. But in a written statement, they said the University of Saskatchewan respects the principles of sovereignty and self-determination in relation to Indigenous membership and citizenship. The Indigenous Membership and Citizenship Task Force is working with Indigenous communities and leaders to identify the appropriate verification information to be required when hiring Indigenous scholars.
Oh, and the Niska's flying north.
Carrier, Waldron, and others hope any new Indigenous identity policies will strike a more reasonable balance so this doesn't happen again. Jason Warwick, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Earlier this week, we told you a growing number of Canadians are struggling with the rising cost of food. Statistics Canada says consumers are paying almost 10% more for food at stores in April compared with a year ago. That's the largest increase since September of 1981. Here in Saskatchewan, food insecurity is also increasing. In Regina, the food bank is feeling the pinch. Since January, it's seen a more than 10% increase in people needing support. And while it is able to buy food in bulk, which brings down the cost, it's still seeing a 6 to 7% increase in the operating budget.
Inflation is one of the factors that's really leading to folks turning to the food banks for support. If you think about it from the perspective of $1,000 a month, $1,000 a year is quite significant, especially if you're sort of right on the verge of being food insecure, and you couple that with food plus gas plus other expenses, it really pushes people to need to turn to us for support.
Bailey says since 2018, the number of people relying on the food bank has doubled. He says the best way to support the food bank is through monetary donations and volunteering. And the food bank needs donations now more than ever. That's because it also just launched a new school lunch program to fight hunger in 8 Regina schools. The chief of the Saskatoon Tribal Council says he's happy its emergency shelter has been given an extension. Yesterday, Saskatoon City Council voted to extend the lease on the Emergency Wellness Centre to next year. The Emergency Wellness Centre opened its doors this winter, and since then, the 75-bed facility has been full. Organizers say it's important to support people who need a place to stay and that their work is important.
I think we're an essential service in this city that's actually making a difference in people's lives. The last thing that I want to see as a tribal council and the chiefs of the Saskatoon Tribal Council want to see is their people on the streets and families and kids on the streets. When we started this journey, it was to make a difference in people's lives.
The Tribal Council is looking at moving the shelter out of the downtown. It's looking at 2 new facilities to help house people. Nutrien is getting ready to ramp up its potash production even sooner than expected. It comes in the uncertainty of the supply from Eastern Europe. The company says it plans to increase production capacity to 18 million tons or more per year by 2025. That's a 40% increase in production compared to 2020. Nutrien also says it plans to hire and train about 350 people to make this happen. It also says it plans to invest in underground mining equipment, mine development, storage, and loadout capacity. WestJet is being called out by trans advocates across Canada for not allowing people to use the X gender marker when booking flights instead of male or female. They say the airline is violating their rights. But today, WestJet says it's making changes. Felicia Chandler has more on the story.
So I finally figured out why WestJet wasn't letting me check in online. It's because I'm trans.
Is Lloyd, a civil servant living in Halifax, recently chose WestJet for a flight, but they say checking in was an ordeal, all because they're non-binary.
I found online that this has been an issue for 3 years, and they've been called out multiple times, and they always give an excuse of it's Transport Canada, or, by the end of this year, like, it's always just like, we'll get to it. Well, it's been 3 years now.
Upon initially booking a series of WestJet flights last week, Lloyd noticed only male or female options were provided under gender. Lloyd picked one and assumed it would be a simple change at the airport, but quickly found out it would be anything but. WestJet staff would not let Lloyd board until using one of those 2 options.
They told me straight up that the reason I was being flagged was because I was trans. That was the only reason. There was no other reason for it. And just the treatment I got from the WestJet agents wasn't great.
And while Transport Canada says gender is needed to estimate the weight of passengers, a category for people with the X marker was added in 2019. Maddie McMillan, a policy analyst and trans person, says along with other community members, she drafted a call to action proposal for WestJet. She says WestJet has until the end of June to fix the problem.
We have a couple of law firms offering their services, looking at either class sort of situations, but any sort of way to lever towards a way that each party can hold their head high on an airplane. That's what we're driving towards.
This week, WestJet announced it is working to change its domestic reservation systems to include gender X by the end of 2022, and that they're working with the community. In a statement, WestJet says, "At WestJet, it is our commitment to ensure our guests have an equitable travel experience, and we owe a further explanation and apology regarding our progress on adding non-binary options to our booking and check-in systems." Lloyd says they've been consistently ignored by the airline in the past, and they hope to see WestJet stick to its word. Felicia Chandler, CBC News, Halifax.
There's a new exhibit at the Regina Public Library, and it's shining light on experiences of deaf and hard of hearing students in the city. Jessie Anton explains.
To some, this looks like art, and to others, a school project. But to these students from Regina's Winston Knoll Collegiate, it's a glimpse into their everyday lives.
I was actually feeling pretty good to tell my stories, let people know how deaf people and hard of hearing people feel.
Through a series of dioramas, photographs, and written descriptions, these young artists are illustrating the feelings of isolation and humiliation they sometimes feel, but also the belonging they've found within the deaf community.
Accepting my deaf identity is the box that I would identify with, because before, when I came in grade 9, I didn't want sign language, I didn't want a deaf identity. And as I went on later in life, I became more confident with that, and now I am proud to say that I am deaf and hard of hearing.
Yamama Arla Whaley says the process of creating the art has been both powerful and meaningful.
I felt like we were all equal. No one was left out or felt less than in the process.
For some, this art installation has also emphasized the need for better access to American Sign Language.
You know, it really impacted me. There was a lot of grief hearing those stories. You know, within a hearing school, these students need exposure to ASL so they can understand. They need exposure to culture. You know, within hearing culture, it's very normal to be listening and hearing things, but for these students, they don't have that ability.
Arla Whaley hopes this project reflects that and serves as a reminder to people who can hear.
Just deal with us the same way you would deal with a hearing person. Deaf people are the same, just support each other.
From Deaf Shame to Deaf Same is on display at the George Bothwell Library until July 15th. Jessie Anton, CBC News, Regina.
Well, it started out pretty nice earlier today, even got some sunny breaks, but there were some dark clouds on the horizon. And it really was only a matter of time until we got rained on, and some areas of the province are seeing more than rain this hour. Ethan will join us after the break with an update and your forecast. Stay with us.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. The exclusive export event is back.
Ethan Williams joins me now with a look at the forecast. Some stormy weather for a lot of us this afternoon.
Yeah, that is right, Sam. Some severe thunderstorms throughout the afternoon, but we'll start in the north where things are still dry and that fire near Stanley Mission is still burning. Firefighters in that area saying this morning that today would be a trying day as crews use air and ground support to battle the blaze. They're asking people to limit travel to the fire area to take pictures. Now, last night, evacuations of some vulnerable groups began. People have been taken to Prince Albert. Another bus left this afternoon, and anyone else who qualifies for evacuation should register at the Elders Center in Stanley Mission. The fire is still not considered a threat to the community, but air quality advisories are still in place. But there is some good news. Rain is on the way, and we'll get to the rain in the north in just a second. But first, we'll start with the rain here and the hail, too. This is from Darren. He shot this on the Trans-Canada near Grand Coulee this afternoon between about 3 o'clock and 3:30. Looks like snow out there. That truck getting through quite a bit of it. And this was the aftermath. This is courtesy of the Regina Fire Department. They were out on the Trans-Canada west of town. And some cars actually sliding into the ditch. Some minor injuries reported as a result of this, but they have cleared the scene now. But if you do have to be driving out in that area this evening, do be careful because we're seeing lots of pictures of lots of hail accumulation. And we do have severe thunderstorm watches in place for a good swath of the province, including both Regina and Saskatoon this evening. And west central Saskatchewan, storms could still fire off. No warnings in place as of right now, but storms are still going, and we'll take a closer look at one warning which was just dropped for the Lucky Lake area. Some generally heavy rain, possibly some large hail, and some very strong winds as part of these cells here just south of Saskatoon. This was the cell that produced all of that hail just south of Regina. These two cells merging together and then moving southeast. No warnings in effect right now, but it's just east of Francis and moving towards Stoughton along the number 33 highway. And there is a risk for some thunderstorms tomorrow. They likely won't be severe, but they could fire off in a general area throughout the province, including, again, Regina, Saskatoon. You're kind of just on the edge of that threat. We could see storms through the evening tonight, and as those die off through the night tonight, we are watching this system, which could bring storms to the south part of the province tomorrow, but a good drink of rain to especially the Churchill region, good for the forest fires there, and we will see that system intensify as we get through tomorrow evening and overnight into Saturday before it moves out. Saturday, we could see some spotty showers and thunderstorms again in the southern part of the province, but by Sunday, it looks like we're into another rainy pattern again. Now, for this is until Saturday morning, we are looking at rainfall amounts generally between 10 and 15 millimeters in the Churchill region. La Ronge picking up probably close to 12 or so. For the south, keep in mind that these amounts could be a little higher in thunderstorms, but maybe between 10 and 15 millimeters along the eastern side of the province. For Regina, Saskatoon, if you get any thunderstorms, it's likely going to be a little higher, but generally between 2 and 5 millimeters. Next 7 days in Regina show a real rainy pattern starting to take effect. Tomorrow, we could see some showers showers. Nice temperatures Saturday, Sunday. Risk of thunderstorms with the Rider game on Saturday. And then for the next few days, temperatures cool down. We are watching a system on Monday that could bring some significant rainfall to the south and also to the central part of the province. You'll see that in Saskatoon's forecast, where we could see between 15 and 20 millimeters of rain. Nice temperatures again for the next few days, but rain as well. And I think the saying, Sam, should go, June showers bring July flowers, because we seem to be getting a lot of rain lately.
June showers bring July mosquitoes, Ethan.
That as well. Got to get the bug spray ready now.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a little bit mixed. The weather right now is a little bit rainy, but and also as soon as there's any thunder or lightning, we do close our pools. But we do constantly watch the weather. So if the weather changes, we try to open if possible. So again, encourage people to check out regina.ca. We do put the status of our pools on there.
Well, the weather could have cooperated a little bit, but it's an exciting day for water lovers regardless. 3 of Regina's outdoor pools officially open today. Regent, Buffalo Meadows, and Maple Leaf are technically now all open for swimming, and they come with some new extended hours, 8 to 8 on weekends in June and 8 to 8 every day in July and August. Massey Pool is undergoing some concrete repairs and won't open for a while yet. We'll be back after the break. A mass shooting at a business in Maryland has claimed several victims. There are reports that at least 3 people have been killed. Law enforcement personnel and emergency vehicles are on the scene in Smithsburg, which is 120 kilometers northwest of Baltimore. Authorities say the suspect is no longer a threat to the community, but little else is known at this point. The business is thought to be a company that makes concrete products equipment. The congressional committee that's investigating the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol takes its hearings to primetime television tonight. The year-long investigation is an effort to show how the traditional peaceful transfer of power nearly collapsed and what it could mean for future elections. Magda Gabriselassis tells us what to expect.
Well, during the hearing, we are expecting to see never-seen-before footage from that day, as well as clips from videotaped depositions from witnesses, including Trump White House officials and members of his family. And we're also expecting to see live interviews from some witnesses, including Caroline Edwards. And she is a Capitol police officer, one of the first to be injured on January 6th. It's believed that she sustained a brain injury.
Those images, the smells, the yelling, the chaos, the blood, it was, that day was a war zone.
We're also expecting to hear from a documentarian who was following the Proud Boys, the far-right extremist group. He's believed to have footage from that day, and he will be testifying. And of course, leaders of that group have been charged with planning the attack. Now, the committee members investigating this say they talked to more than 1,000 witnesses. They went through more than 100,000 documents, and they say the evidence shows that there was a conspiracy to overturn the results of the election, and they say Donald Trump was at the center of that.
Multi-level, multi-step process of trying to negate, nullify, and destroy Joe Biden's majority in the Electoral College.
Meanwhile, many Republicans are dismissing the investigation and its findings.
Their focus on attacking their political opponents is so strong, they don't care about the rules.
This committee is not about seeking the truth. It is a smear campaign against President Donald Trump.
Tonight's hearing is just one of many. The next one is scheduled for Monday. Magda Gabriselassis, CBC News, Washington.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stepped away from the Summit of the Americas in Los Angeles today. He paid a visit to the governor of California, and the two leaders announced a partnership to fight climate change.
This new partnership will see us work together on everything from protecting nature, driving investment in clean tech, keeping single-use plastic out of our oceans. We're also committed that Canada and California will bring together experts at UN Climate Week to drive progress on wildfires and climate and forest resilience. The bottom line is we're delivering what matters to people: clean air and water, good jobs, and a strong future that leaves no one behind.
Canada's climate change minister was there to sign the Memorandum of Understanding with his California counterpart. The agreement expands on a 2019 climate deal with California that focused on reducing vehicle emissions. Afterward, Trudeau returned to the Summit of the Americas for a bilateral meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden. The Prime Minister is expected to push Canada's priorities, including climate change, gender equality, and economic and democratic growth. Biden is expected to focus on migration and immigration issues. And Ethan is back with one last look at tonight's weather.
And a little less stormy in Regina tonight, Sam. We'll see some clearing conditions at 13 at midnight. Winds will still be a little gusty out of the southeast, maybe between 35 and 40 kilometers an hour. But by the time we get to tomorrow morning, we will see cloud cover build in. We will possibly see a chance of showers as well. We'll be at 15 degrees at 8 a.m. And by the time we get to the noon hour, we're likely going to get a break from any chance of showers at that point. Winds will stay probably between 30 and 35 kilometers an hour as we get to 19 degrees. Not quite at 20. At midnight tonight in Saskatoon, 15, we'll see partly cloudy skies. We head to tomorrow morning, and that's when cloud will build in as well. Good chance of showers as we head toward 8 a.m., 15 degrees at that point. And then that chance of showers increases to around 70% as we head toward the noon hour. We'll be at 18 degrees, cloudy conditions. And so, Sam, you will likely need the rain gear going to and from work tomorrow.
Noted. Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
And before we leave you tonight, a look back on some Saskatchewan history, specifically the last time a steamship went up the South Saskatchewan River in Saskatoon. It was the SS City of Medicine Hat, and it capsized 114 years ago this week.
1908 is a record flood year. And overnight, while they were sleeping, the river rose 6 feet. And this is a problem because they got 4 bridges they got to get underneath with this ship. As they're going underneath the railway bridge, there's a cable hanging in the water. It's covered by the risen water. And they snag the rudder on the cable. And suddenly, he can't steer the ship. So he calls down to the engineering room for full power astern. So they go full power astern, and it doesn't make a damn bit of difference. So now, the water is running 10 miles an hour, right? And they are heading hell for leather for the traffic bridge. In the middle of it, these 2 cowboys show up, and they have a herd of cows, and they start driving the cows across the bridge. They part way across, and the ship hits the bridge. There's pictures of this event, right? And it's clear from the pictures that there is no way that that ship is going to get under this bridge on that day. It's not going to happen. Sure enough, slams into the bridge, the current wheels it around, comes up against the pier, onto its side, sploosh, capsizes into the water, we're done. The cows are partway across, and they're already a little bit nervous, right, as you can imagine. And so the ship hits the bridge, boom, and the cows spook. And so the people spook, and so the cows stampede. So the people stampede. So you got all these people climbing up on the railing to get away from the cows. And probably the cows are climbing up on the railing to get away from the people. And there's this big mass of cows and of people, and they're mooing and they're swearing. They got it all straightened out. Nobody was killed or even seriously injured. Probably it was the most fun anybody had in Saskatoon that whole summer, 1908. But the Medicine Hat was done for.
Wow. And since that day, divers have been recovering pieces of the ship from the river, including the anchor, which is on display at the Meewasin Valley Centre in Saskatoon. That is it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/sask or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Ethan will be back with more local news and weather tonight at 11. We're back tomorrow at 6. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great night.